Hello and welcome back to part 10 of our hard surface modeling series for Maya. Been about a week since our last episode. I hope you all had a fantastic Christmas. The New Year's coming up, so this will be probably the last episode for the year until we go into next year. Episode 10 now, I think. Kind of wild that we're at this point already. I feel like we haven't really made that much progress looking at it. But I am happy where it's going, and I think last we left off, we were making these portholes, and we did this one deck here, and I think I said to you guys to go away and do the rest, and that's okay if you didn't do that, because for the opening part of this episode, I'm going to go ahead and quickly cut in the ones up the top here, because I want to start adding some more details to the side of the hole, and I'd also like to extrude this in to give it thickness, and then start creating the decks on the inside as well, because that can look quite cool. And if we get time, maybe we can look at making one of the like hatches as well, because we're going to have some of these closed, some of these open, and that would just look really, really nice once that's done. Sorry, excuse me. So anyway, if I sound a little bit different, I'm still slightly sick. I had COVID or some sort of flu or something over the Christmas period that always sucked. So apologies if it doesn't sound exactly the same as it normally does. I don't know why I'm referring to myself as it, but there you go. So we're just going to go ahead and cut in these holes. If you remember from last episode, we had a guide shape that we were using, and we were using the live surface tool. I think I also mentioned how to clean up this topology, so let's go ahead and do that first, just because I don't want to wait forever to do that. So we're going to turn our guide back on, unhide that, turn on our live selection, and then I'm just going to go ahead and select those two and isolate them. I'm now going to press on the keyboard Control, Shift, and Q at the same time. What that's going to do is that's going to turn on Quad Draw. This is quite a cool tool, actually. It allows you to actually this is used quite often for retopology, because you can kind of edit the mesh. And then if you have live surface turned on, which you normally would using this, you can kind of create topology on top of the mesh. So it's great for retopo, maybe for another video. But what it also is really good for is, if I turn on B, we can also soft select, which is really cool. And if we just hold down B and then middle mouse drag, like you normally would with soft select and regular polygon modeling, I'm going to hold down Shift, which will go into relax mode. And as when I start holding down left click, it's going to start evening out the topology around these portholes. And we don't really need to worry so much about our topology going in perfectly straight lines around these windows now, simply just because occasionally it will do the actual inner lines here. Like if I was to select this to begin with, it will, but as long as we select the ones on the outside, it won't do this edge here for our windows. So we're just going to go around and relax some of these. This isn't 100% necessary, but it's just something I like to do, because that way when it comes to adding holding edges and things, the topology is just a bit more even. We don't run into any weirdness, which hopefully at this stage there shouldn't really be much of, but you never know. It is Maya, and we are modeling a pretty complex model after all. Okay, so this one as well is looking pretty uneven, so that definitely needs it. Okay, so that just cleans that up a little bit. It might make your topology look a little bit less straight and perfect as it was, but it's still going to hold the shape nicely. Okay, so something else that we need to do is, if you remember correctly from the last episode, we realized that we actually needed to make cuts into this band here. And we did it for the bottom one because we've already done it for those. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this side too, because we're going to have to do it for this one as well. So we'll just delete the parts we don't need, like last time. Okay. Check if there's anything else. So we got this bit here too. The reason I'm deleting this edge, or these faces, is because they're like leftover remnants from the bevel, and when we come to extrude this out again, because the shape has actually changed, they're not just holding edges, they're actually curved in, like you can see here, it's just going to cause issues, so we just get rid of them. And if we need to make any adjustments to the size or length of things, we can do that afterwards, but it should be pretty okay by the looks of it. It's not too much of a difference. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and start actually cutting in our upper deck portholes. I think there are almost an even number of them here, or similar number. So like we did last time, we're just going to select our faces. We're doing, what we're doing here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 by 4 here. Here, this one's looking a little bit smaller, so we might only do 3 by 4 for this one. If you look here, it looks kind of a lot slimmer. I don't know whether that's... They might all be a little smaller. That does seem to happen. You do get slightly different, like, sized portholes, and of course you would, right? If you think back in the day, they were just making this by hand, which is crazy to think about. I feel like not a lot of things are done that way anymore. So we're just going to go ahead and straighten this out. Some of the sizes of things might change a little bit. It can be a bit fiddly sometimes when you're doing live surface, but it will largely hold to the size. Okay. Sometimes you have to sort of like move around individual vertices. That can happen, but you know, it's not the end of the world. It's mainly, if you're going to run into issues, it will be like on, yeah, you see there, it's like got a mind of its own. Just keep dragging it into place and it'll be okay. If you run into problems like that, it will normally be around like areas like this where it starts to curve. Oh, we had selected a back vertice there. We don't want to do that. I must have moved that over last time. I don't remember doing that. Okay, we'll just delete that because we don't need it. And that will solve that problem. Okay, we'll go ahead and flatten this out. Oh. Like so. Same for this one. Drag that in. I think these might be slightly too high. I think that needs to be around about here. Yeah, there we go, more square. Okay, and just trying to keep these edges pretty even on all sides. Okay, then let's go ahead and make the rest. Yeah, these all seem to be a little bit smaller, which is okay. So we'll just do 3 by 4 for these. I don't know about you guys, but I'm still feeling pretty lethargic after Christmas. We had a lot of food and then came home with a lot of snacks. I think I've been eating nothing but chocolate and biscuits for the past 3 or 4 days. These ones here are looking maybe even smaller. It's hard to tell. Okay, you'll get this sometimes where the reference is just a bit hard to sort of decipher what's going on. That looks like that's 4 by 4 again. But it could also just be the way our edges are lining up. So we'll go back to 4 by 4 for this. That's okay. Yeah, it looks like the edge is right there. I mean, we have the topology density here to kind of like give us a fair bit of freedom. So it's not the end of the world if things are slightly different like that. Yeah, looks like we'll go back to 4 by 4. I remember when I had to do this for my first ship model, the HMS Victory, and this took a long time. I think I actually used the multi-cut tool to cut these out by hand, and it took a very long time. At the time, I didn't know about the... I didn't think to use the live surface feature for whatever reason. I knew about it. It's just one of those things in the moment you don't think about it. So I had to go and do all of those by hand. Yeah, we'll go with those ones. Okay, we don't need to manipulate these ones too much because actually with this we might get away with doing 4x3 in the other way. Okay. It would just be kind of like where your faces end up lining up. Like with this, we could do, maybe even just do 3x3. If I scale that up slightly. That pretty much fits perfectly already. I think that's just luck. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is I'll time lapse, or in fact what I'll do is I'll pause the recording here, finish these off, just so the whole video isn't us making more portholes, because we've kind of already gone and done this, and I think you know how to do this at this point. So I'll pause the recording there and we'll come back when that's all done, and then hopefully by that point you've also got yours to the same point, and then we'll move on to adding the decks and extruding this and everything. So that is all the portholes cut out for the top portion of the hole. There's a few more that we need to add here, but we'll get to that later. I've also cut out the remaining parts from here. This band, we just did it the same way we did here. I've also realized that we don't need these to come as far along as they are, because they'll be contacting this part anyway. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just cut this off, because we don't need it. And then quickly go and bridge these. And then we'll remove this. Okay, and then we'll do the same for this one too, probably. We'll just delete this guy. Oh no, that's the hole. We need that bit. Oops. This one. Okay, cool. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and extrude this again. Out a little bit. Just the same thickness roughly as the bottom one. Something like that. Okay, perfect. Right, now that we have the thickness in place for this, let's go ahead and duplicate this across. So we have both sides. Actually, no. I won't do that for the time being, because we're going to need to add holding edges to this eventually. So, looking at my reference of a real ship, we're kind of going to gauge how thick these should be. And the hull is relatively thick. If I had to guess, it looks about like 30 centimeters or so. It's kind of hard to tell just from pictures alone. We could probably find out. But just looking at some reference here, I'm going to go ahead and extrude about this much, I think. So it's quite thick, maybe thicker than you'd expect. Something like this, right? Because you think these things had to withstand like not only the elements, but also cannonballs occasionally. Something like this. So something about like this. We're just going to reverse the normals on this so we can see it properly. So that's given us the thickness we need. But what you can see here, because of the way we've extruded it, it's actually gone in this way. Whereas these should actually be level with the ground, parallel to the ground. So in order to do that, we're probably going to literally have to select like these edges, and then basically just pull them up like this until we're kind of level with the ground, and we're just going to eyeball that, right? So we'll go through and do that at some point, but for the time being we'll just leave it and we'll come back to it later, I think. So that's the thickness for our hull. Those are our portholes. We now need to start creating the decks. So for the time being, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this guy across. We're not going to combine it yet because it's not the final piece, and we'll need to do some extra work on this before we're done with it. But it's just to give us an idea of where the decks are supposed to be. Okay, so to create the decks, all we're going to do is we will just copy the top deck piece and then bring it down I'm just going to isolate this part of the hole. And it seems to come down to around about here. Just a tad below the portholes. We're going to need to adjust the shape of this because the portholes aren't quite as, at least this part of the deck isn't quite as curved as the top, right? So I'm just going to inverse scale it slightly until things kind of match a bit more evenly. Let's have a look from the 3D view, the viewport. Something kind of like this. Okay, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect because we're not going to be looking here much anyway. It's just for the inside, right? So the one we look from the outside, we don't just have nothing. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and delete one side because what we want to do now is, if I just select the hole again and isolate these two bits, is we want to get this to connect up to the side of the ship. So I'm just going to go ahead, select that entire edge, and then just drag it over, and we'll see which point contacts first. So it looks like there, and we're going to see how far we can pull it forward, and it looks like we can almost just drag the entire thing to connect. We might have to move some individual edges ourselves here. So we'll move some of the vertices. So we're just getting these to contact the inside of the hole, and it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Because this shape, we're never actually going to see the edges of this. It's just for the inside of the ship to block the light and give a realistic look. We're not going to be looking in this particular model at the inside of the ship, right? We'll still get the texture and stuff later, but it's just because it has to be there, and we're going to be able to see inside the ship. If we were going to have all the portholes closed permanently and it's just literally just a display piece, then we probably wouldn't bother. But because some of the portholes are going to be open, and that just looks cooler, we'll have some cannons sticking out, stuff like that, we want to make sure we actually have the deck visible. Otherwise it's just going to look hollow and that'll look kind of weird. Okay. Okay, and then we'll do the part up the front here as well, so I'll just extrude that. Go forward, bring that in, and we might just be able to get away with one extrusion. Yeah, looks like it. Okay, so I'm just going to reset the transforms, and then we'll scale that across. Okay, perfect. And then we're just going to extrude down slightly. About this much, probably, just to give that some thickness. And then, because we don't need this outside edge, we're just going to go ahead and delete that. Okay, so that is the top portion of our deck, and you can also see now we don't just have black in there because we have some of the hole, and that's starting to give a lot more, the deck. So that's starting to give a lot more dimension to this already, which is nice to have. We'll go ahead and select that again, and our two hole sides, and then we're going to duplicate that and then pull that down. We might need to have a look at the curvature again. I think for the time being, we'll just hide the top one. That seems to fit pretty well to me, so I'm pretty happy with that. We'll go ahead and get rid of the side so that we can adjust the size of this one. And then we'll just get this to fit too. Normally it would be a good idea to smooth this outer portion of the hole first, just so we know exactly what that's going to look like when it subdivides and we don't have any gaps from this part of the deck. But because the topology is so high, it's not going to be that much of a difference. Or the, what's it called, sorry. The topology density is so high. Okay, we might be able to do some of these all at once. Yeah. Okay. And don't worry about this outside edge being a bit wobbly, we're just getting it to contact. Okay, that might need to come down a little bit more, looking at it. Around about here, maybe. Something like that. Okay, perfect. Then again, we will duplicate across. Combine and merge. Ah, okay, so we've got a bit coming out the back here. So simply all we'll do is delete that. Then pull that forward to around about here, probably. Okay, great, and then that's our two decks, and then we can see right in there, and we're not seeing any more holes. And that just already is starting to give so much more dimension to the side of the ship. We'll go ahead and start adding a few details to the side of the hull now as well, I think. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a hatch to one of our portholes. So there's this one here. Like I was saying earlier, we need to actually adjust these faces so that this bottom angle and top angle here is actually parallel with the ground or the waterline. That unfortunately is going to require some tedious work, and we're going to have to sort of do that manually. If any of you know of a better way to do that, please do let me know, because I would love to know. It would save us a hell of a lot of time. But for the time being, I'm just going to take one of those ones that we've done already and use that to create our porthole, or the hatch at least. So the way to do that's actually pretty simple. We're just going to go ahead and duplicate this. I'm going to go into face select mode and then select specifically these faces. Select, hold down space, select, and then inverse. And then that will give us just this inside part here, okay? This part's also quite tedious, but it's necessary because each one will have a hatch to it. I think these ones actually, funnily enough, thinking about it now, they might not have hatches. Some of the ones along the center line here don't have hatches. So maybe not this one in particular. Let's do this bottom one here. We will flatten this out. Actually, maybe that's a way to do it. Ah, okay, that's a better way to do it. If you just select these faces, then we're going to align the pivot point to that bottom edge, right? Because we want this to be the same, but it's just the inside one that stays, changes. And we'll just scale it. Okay, so again, we'll do what we did before. Duplicate, face select mode, hold down space, select, and then inverse. Then all we're going to do is I'm going to delete these edges here because we don't need them for the time being. Then I will select all of these, deselect these, and then just hold down shift, right click, and go to bridge. Okay, we're then going to select these faces, delete them, hold down mesh display, and then reverse. Okay, and then that gives us a door that perfectly fits in. We'll then go back and add in our edges like this. And then now we have a perfect cover for it. So what we could have done, actually thinking about it now, is when we were making these, is kept them. I kind of like to do it this way. Maybe it's sort of like a weird OCD thing. That way I just know that I've made it from scratch and it's as clean as possible. And that's kind of the basic shape of our hatch. What we are going to do, though, is ever so slightly decrease it in size. Down to like 0.995 or something, right? Because it's a perfect fit, but it's not going to be like completely snug, right? There's going to be a small little gap. Also, there is, if you look at your reference of real life ships or models, they have a little smaller porthole or little hatch within the hatch. Not completely sure what that's for. If anyone knows, do let us know. But that kind of sits in the middle, so we'll go ahead and create that as well. So we'll just select the middle faces and then scale that down to about this size, something like that. I'm then going to go ahead and come up to edit mesh, and then we are looking for extract. Okay, that's going to create some weird groups in here, so we'll just pull that out. Then delete that group. Okay, I'll scale this down ever so slightly as well, probably by a similar amount. 0.995. Maybe go to 0.9. No. 0.95. 0.98. Something like that. Okay, cool. Now what we'll do is we can extrude this. And for these, we'll just, instead of using the, if I go back there, instead of using this or the thickness one, that's going to give us the same problem we had before where it kind of comes down. We want it to come straight back. So all we're going to do is we'll go to extrude and just press W on your keyboard to get up the translate tool. That's going to keep the selection of those faces that will extrude out, and then we can do it ourselves, and that will go perfectly in the direction that we need it to. Okay. These have some thickness to them, but they're not the exact same thickness as the exterior hull. So we're going to come out to around about something like this. Okay. Mesh display in reverse. Maybe a tad bit more. Something like this. Okay. So that's our hatch. We're then going to do the same with this part. We want that thickness to be the same. Again, just pressing W. Okay, perfect. There's also a bit of an inside lip on this part. So we'll go select all the inside faces, extrude, and then offset to about something like this. I think we actually want to keep these faces here. So we'll select these ones too, and then we'll just extrude back straight again, just a tad. Oh, we seem to have accidentally selected some outside ones. Just these inside ones. Extrude back. Okay, and then that's the basic shape of our porthole. We'll bring this back a little as well. Actually, leave that as it is. Okay, that's the basic shape of our hatch. This one, I mean, it's kind of up to you what you want to do here. I'm going to have these ones open. I think I want to have all of them open. You could have them all closed. It's kind of up to you, but I want to have some nice cannons sticking out of here. I think that will look really cool. Kind of like it's ready to like fight or something in some sort of battle. So I'm going to go ahead and group this, and we're going to call this lower underscore hatch underscore 001. Okay. And in order to get this to come out at the correct angle, I'm just going to set the pivot point to this area here. Okay. Keep that as it is, and then we're just going to scale it, or not scale it, sorry, rotate it. You can probably see here that's giving us some sort of weird offset rotation there, where it's not quite lined up with the hole. So to fix that, we're literally just going to use this part of the gizmo instead, and just gently rotate it into place. We'll kind of have these, and don't feel obligated to have these all open to the exact same degree, because they probably wouldn't be. I think these were just pulled up with rope on the inside. So there's no like advanced mechanism going on here. Again, this is where the real tedious part starts, to be completely honest with you. This part can take a while, but that's how you create just one of the hatches opened. And then we also need to create the mechanism that holds it in place. So if I quickly show you my reference here, some of our reference. It's a bit low resolution, but this is the HMS Victory, and you can see here there's these ropes that come out from here and come down to here. And if I look at this model here, you can see the exact same things represented, and there's these kind of metal bars here that come out on hinges. So I think what would happen is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, there's the crew on the inside would pull on these ropes, and that would lift the hatch up. Okay, and then it would pivot on these hinges here. So we'll go ahead and also add those hinges, and then I think what we'll do is we'll get this hatch done, and then that will show you how to do that. And then if you want to, like with the actual portholes before, you can go ahead and just populate the rest of those yourself, and then we'll come back and pick up from that point in the next episode. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in those other connecting pieces that we need. So again, we're going to start with a cube. I'm just going to hold down V to vertex snap it over to the hatch, and then I'm just going to lift this up. Okay, we're going to go into vertex selection mode, and we're just going to drag it up to the point where it gets close to the hole, and then drag this down towards the bottom, like so. And it's a pretty simple mesh. I'm going to pull this out here. Scale that down slightly. And we're going to pull these down until they contact. Okay. Then pull these out. And so we can create one piece, and then that will kind of do the job for all of them. But you will have to edit the shape a little bit for all of them, unfortunately. Because the hole has quite a dynamic shape. The position of these and the curvature of these is going to change from hatch to hatch. It might be similar for the ones in the middle, but then the ones on the side, it's going to be quite different to the ones in the middle. So this part really can be quite tedious, but it is very much worth it because it's going to make your model look a lot cooler in the end. But yeah, we can definitely get away with just making one and then adjusting it to our needs for everything else. So I'm just going to add, with the multi-cut tool, a couple edges here. Just 3, because we only have 3 running across here, right? Just to about there, so the curvature maintains the same. Okay, I'm then going to go ahead and select these. At this stage, unless you're trying to make your model completely accurate, I would say just start adding your own flair if you want to. I'm going to have these be beveled at the edge, or rounded off, just because I think it looks quite cool. Only 2 divisions, we don't need to go crazy. There we go. And then what we're going to want to do next is we need a cylindrical piece here. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm just going to pull this back slightly. Just going to isolate that, select this, extrude out, and then extrude up. Okay, I'm then going to add a loop there and a loop there. What I'll then do is select these faces, and then we should be able to circularize those. Okay, we've got some weird twisting happening, but that's okay. We'll just get these aligned here. Twist that back into place. Okay, there's some weird misalignment here, but that's okay. We'll fix that up real quick. Like so. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Now that's nice and even. I'm gonna just pull that back again till it's sort of in this crease. Okay, and then what I'm also going to do is I'll add a loop there, and then I'm just going to lift this up, just so it's slightly off of the hull, and pull it forward a little bit more. Okay, then what we need to do next is actually create a separate piece, so I'm going to duplicate this, and rotate this around the other way. Okay. Then we're going to want to bring that over. And this is kind of like the reverse piece, right? Just going to get a little fiddly here. But it doesn't have to look perfect. These are so small that if it's slightly off, you won't really notice it. And also, even if it is, that's kind of just going to add character. I'd say you don't want this to look perfect, like mechanical anyway. We'll rotate that up until that kind of fits to the side. Actually, thinking about it, I don't think we really need that piece. This kind of just connects to the side of the hole. I think mechanically, obviously, it's going to work a little bit different, but we're not really worried about how it's going to work exactly, because we're never going to be that close to it, right, to see these. So all we're going to add is an extra little piece that comes out from here that kind of just implies that it would function. Rather than it actually having to function. A lot of when you're modeling is making things look like they can work without necessarily having to work. There are times certainly where things have to work, but this is not one of those cases. And you certainly can do that if that's what you want to do, but for the sake of this tutorial, we're not going to. We're just trying to get it to look the part. Okay, so that's one. We'll go ahead and duplicate over the next one. Push that back slightly and plop that there. Okay, so that's the opening mechanism. We now need to actually do the pulley section. So we're going to start with a cylinder for that. There's going to be quite a lot of these, so I don't want these to be particularly high poly, so we'll set the subdivision axes to 8. And we're going to need 2 of these. We'll rotate that 90 degrees and pull it up to around about here, I think. And just pull that back till it contacts with the hole. And then rotate it so it aligns correctly. Somewhere like this. Okay, then we're going to select these faces here, extrude in a bit. Okay, then we're going to extrude that out, and then pull it down, and rotate it, and then just reduce in size. And this is where our rope's going to come out from. I'll increase the size of this a bit. Okay, and we kind of want this to be pointing directly towards this part here, because that's where the rope's going to connect. So we'll just eyeball that for now, but we can make that a bit more concrete in a moment. Pull that over a little. Okay, we then need the point that it's going to connect to. So we'll go hold down shift right click, create a torus. That's just a little, I'm forgetting what this is called for some reason, a ring, a chain link. Sorry, it's been a long day. We'll set that to 8 too. And we'll select the section radius, or set the section radius, sorry, to 0.2. Rotate that so that's kind of lining up there. Then I'm going to set the pivot point to the middle portion of this ring so that we can get that into place correctly. And then rotate it so it's kind of pointing towards the rope point. Like so. Something like that. We can always adjust that in a moment. Then we'll go ahead and add a cube again, and this is just a point for where the torus connects to, just so it's not floating. Even though it's a small scale, we still want this to look as like physically accurate as possible, even if it's not going to work 100%, right? Create something like that. We'll just round off the edges. Give that 2 segments, just so that has a nice point to connect to. Then all we're going to do is get a cylinder. We could create some actual rope for this, but we'll probably just add a texture instead. It's a lot easier with a normal map. Set the subdivision axes again to 8. We're going to set the pivot point just at the top here. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and just snap it to this point where the rope comes out from. Reduce it in size a bit, pull that back. Then I'm just going to select these ones and then snap these over to the middle like so. We'll rotate the faces. We'll have it come back like that. Okay, and then to have that look correct, we could then even go ahead and duplicate this. Pull that back. And then maybe scale this down a little bit. And then if we go to vertex selection mode, double click on the move tool, and then change this from object to normal, and then drag down on here. We can actually increase the thickness of this so it matches the original rope. Set that back to object. Okay, and then that's our first bit of rope. We'll then go ahead and just select all of these, freeze the transformations, duplicate, and then move over. And that should mostly fit. And there you have it. That is our first hatch and all the details really to go with it. There is, I think, one other little detail that goes on the front here. That kind of just looks like a ring. So we're going to get a cylinder. Again, we'll set that to 8.2 because it's going to be quite small. Bring it over here. This is just kind of the hinge for this part opening, but this is going to be quite tiny, so we won't make it too complicated. Bring that up. Make sure this is aligned with the shape or the curvature of our hatch. Pull up. We're then going to pull up the bottom faces. Get those to sit just above the hatch, like this. Select these interior faces, extrude in, because we want this to be a ring. Delete. Okay, we're then going to bridge these faces here. Okay, and there you go. There you have it. That's the detail that we're going to add. So this isn't 100% functionally correct, but we're not going to be looking at it from too close, right? That's something you do a lot of the time when you're working with 3D modeling, is you're always making the model for spec or for purpose. We could do this as 100% accurate, perfectly like high detailed from any angle, but that's not exactly what we're doing here. We're just kind of showing you how to make a ship like this, probably to be viewed from an angle like this. And from here, like, you can't really even make out some of those details, but they will work from this distance. Okay, let's go ahead and add these extra elements to our hatch group. Okay. And that is our hatch. And we can go ahead and keep these top elements here. We can duplicate these and reuse them. Annoyingly, we will have to manually replace all of them. Fortunately, this one doesn't have too many portholes, but we will have to create this hatch from scratch every time, just because it's going to be a completely different shape. You could maybe duplicate it. I wouldn't, because you're going to end up having to change the shape of it anyway. But that's how I'd go ahead and create one of the hatches, and I'll leave it to you, some homework if you like, to go ahead and create the rest of them, and we'll pick up from there in the next episode. Starting to get a little bit more complicated now, adding some more smaller details, but it's getting to that point in the model. It's a pretty important step. Again, hope you enjoyed. Any comments at all, please do let us know. That'll be the last episode for the year till 2025. I hope you've been enjoying the series up until this point. Thank you so much for watching over the past couple months. We are also a design agency. If you're interested in having any work done by us, we always put our links in the description. We sell pre-made mock-ups, 3D assets, illustration packs for icons and things like that. We make logos, 3D animations, and all sorts. And we also make educational content like this on YouTube. So again, from us here at Someday Studios, thank you very much for watching. And have a very happy new year, and we'll see you in 2025.